Be the Talk, episode 352, featuring Alison Escalante. Welcome to Be the Talk. We go behind the talk 7 days a week for tips and techniques to help you change the world. I'm Nathan Eckel, and a talker myself. I'm interviewing others who change the world with their talk. You can too, even if you've never given a talk before. Let's get started with today's show. We are live with Dr. Alison Escalante. Alison, are you ready to talk?
Oh, I love to talk.
Alison Escalante, MD, is a pediatrician on a mission with a clear 3-step method to help parents raise kids skillfully and enjoy doing it. Alison writes the column for Psychology Today, and she hosts a Facebook group, ShouldStorm. She's gone to Princeton, Duke, and the University of Chicago, and there's a whole lot more where that came from. Alison Escalante, welcome to the talk.
Well, thank you so much, Nathan. I'm really looking forward to this.
Your talk is called The Parenting ShouldStorm. I love the name. And you already talked about in the bio the 3-step method, which is to sigh, to see, and to start. And you mentioned in the talk that before you realized all of these things, you had, as a parent yourself of 2, I believe, you had should-based anxiety, but now you have confidence. So please, Alison, take us behind the talk.
Well, sure. I don't know if there are any parents more perfectionistic than pediatricians, right? Because we are trained in child development and we have access to all the science and the understanding of the science. So when I had my first son, for instance, and this was not in my TEDx, he had a rare kind of food allergy, and it caused a kind of colitis, right? At that time, to continue to breastfeed him, I needed to go on a very restrictive diet. But I was getting daily doctor emails on breastfeeding research, which, and with snappy titles that basically implied that my son's IQ would be lower and his life would be ruined if I didn't continue to breastfeed. I went on an incredibly restrictive diet. And this was before anyone knew about quinoa. So I was on basically a soy-free vegan diet, very low protein, and I didn't quit until I actually started fainting.
Oh.
That kind.
Oh.
I know.
Oh.
That kind of driving yourself to a place where some things may have been lost or in a negative way impacted because of my drive to do that best thing for my child. But what about all those other things? I was so exhausted. I think we effectively bonded, but I think that a lot of our bonding had to be done after that time when I wasn't so stressed and distracted by my mission to breastfeed.
Well, and you have competing commitments at that point because you have this commitment as a mom, but then you have this triple standard because you are the kid pro as a professional, yet you are experiencing for the first time what all of your patients are experts in, which is learning the chaos of parenting. So I cannot imagine. And then you have this standard of perfection. So I can see why your talk is, frankly, I'm not yet a parent, but it's got to be so reassuring for people because it's all about sidestepping the should storm. And the point behind all of this stuff, you have some great personal stories and experiences, but anxious parents produce anxious kids. And we can see, I always like to cross-reference episode 150 of Be the Talk. Dr. Michael Hines, the superintendent of the Long Island School District, way out there, who talks about whole child education and developing social and emotional intelligence as well as just intellectual and also physical. And it's like we see this is so interesting because we're seeing kind of the inception of where it all starts, the anxious parents who are trying to do it all, trying to avoid being social shamed, trying to avoid making the big mistake that'll cause the tweet and the photo to go viral. And then the government knocks on the door or whatever. I've actually had friends that have, kind of free ranged their children and had things like that happen to them. And it's just insane. So what a great voice of sanity. Mirror image. I'm going to point this way to you, Dr. Allison. Anxious parents produce anxious kids. So can you speak right now? There are first time parents or soon to be first time parents who are freaking out right now, just like you did. What would you say to them right now?
Guys, your baby doesn't need all that stuff. They don't need all the exact right things to stimulate their development that you guys ask me about all the time. They need you. That's what our kids need. And it's what they want. And when I'm present with my kids, not distracted, not driven by anxiety, my kids tell me how much that matters to them. They're old enough they can tell me now. But guys, it's you. And I know that's actually really alarming to be told. You are enough. And I can help you get to a place where you actually feel confident about that. And that's what the 3 steps are about.
Yeah. Well, and I think we need to just look at the issue again, the problem again. I mean, the shoulds, there's a really good piece about the shoulds that actually meet a need according to your talk. And that's because they give us certainty. I mean, we get into that judger brain and then we have certainty. We can make decisions. We can carry on in our friction filled, stressful life with all these shoulds, but then they become a big burden. And you have the 3-step process instead of stop, drop, and roll. What do we have instead?
We have sigh, see, and start. So whenever you feel not sure, you're going to feel anxious and you're going to look for a should. But the shoulds are not going to help you be present or be the great parent you want to be. So when you feel a should, sigh, see, and start. Sigh deep into your body. And this is really important. Let it out really slow, because that moves us into the calm and connected centers in our nervous system, out of fight or flight. Then see. Really see your child. See the situation. See what they're acting like. Then, and only then, start something. Start nothing. Start the wrong thing. This is my favorite part, Nathan, because when we start the wrong thing, we might trigger another should. And that's okay. You just sigh, see, and start again. So we get to start using our mistakes to grow instead of being so afraid of our mistakes. Instead of a world where we're told you should get it right and you should not make mistakes, we get to understand that our mistakes actually help us connect and be better parents. So I'm really excited about this.
Well, I'm excited too, because you didn't get this philosophy from your medical training. I know that, because there's no thinner, zero margin for error culture anywhere than the modern American healthcare system. So this is so, I don't understand, Talk Universe. If you come from any, if you have an uncle or an aunt who's a nurse or a physician or a pharmacist or whatever, they will tell you, if you hung out with them enough, you see the pressure, you see that there is not this kind of tolerance and grace and openness to discovery. But this is beautiful, because Dr. Allison kind of has one foot solidly in that world still, as a board certified professional who's doing everything that needs to be done. But then she's got another foot in our world, the world where, we've hyper optimized ourselves almost to death. We've shoulded ourselves almost to death. And the only way is to loosen the belt a little bit and to be mindful and to really take a systems view so that we can make sense of our world. Now, if you want to, before we pivot over to the Blitz round, I'm going to tell you, sigh, see, and start. Those are the 3, correct? Sigh, see, and start. So it's so easy. A podcaster can remember it after a couple of reviews, which is a great framework. Sigh, see, and start. If you want to, I'm not going to embarrass Dr. Allison by bringing up the actual story that you can watch in her TED Talk that talks about how extreme she takes this. Not going to say that right now because we want you to watch this. You will be picking your jaw off the floor, and it really underscores Dr. Alison's piece here that don't should yourself, learn, do something better. If you make a mistake and it leads to another mistake, surprise, you're a human, join the club, and then stop making the same mistakes. I love it. I love it. I love it. Before we go over to the blitz round, Dr. Alison, what's your take on that?
When parents start to lose their should, we grow, and then our kids have space to grow with us. We have an anxiety epidemic, Nathan. The latest Stress in America survey from the APA says 91% of Gen Zers are reporting physical or emotional symptoms of anxiety or depression.
91%. So we got 9% are, okay. Healthy, okay,
Yeah. Now that's an alarming statistic, and it's not, I am never saying that parenting is all to blame. Of course not. There are so many reasons our kids are stressed, but parenting is a place where our kids have that space to either receive grace and grow resilience or get pushed farther into the burden. And so that's where we can really start to lose our should so that our kids can lose their should.
We've been enjoying this conversation with Dr. Alison Escalante. Her talk is called The Parenting ShouldStorm, and we're going to pivot over to you, Talk Universe, in just a moment when we enter the Blitz round. Hey, Talk Universe. I hope you've been enjoying today's episode with today's guest. But you know what? Many people want more than that. Many people that listen to Be the Talk actually want to give a talk. And if that's you, you're not alone. Listen to the rest of this podcast. At the end, I'll have a free resource for you just for listening. And we're back with the Blitz round. We have Dr. Alison Escalante with us. I'm going to ask her a series of either or questions related to the preparation and actual performance of her recent talk. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
First question, were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I applied, but what I did is I went to TEDx Naperville. I had such a great time. And then I happened to connect with Arthur Zards, the curator, in the after party. And I said, hey, Arthur, I've got a great idea. And he let me pitch it in my 60-second pitch, and he loved it.
Love it. So, okay, so I'm reversing this. So you went as you bought a ticket and you went to an event. You didn't buy the ticket that you spoke at. You did kind of what the best in class do when they're not invited. They buy a ticket. They support the local community, TEDx, and then go up to the organizer or go up to somebody on the team and find out, if there's kind of an advantaged higher touch way to actually, get a little bit of a leg up on the application process. So good for you. And the reason that I'm going into this level of detail is most of us have to apply. I had to apply. Right. And that would be good advice for any of us that have to apply as opposed to being invited to speak. Alison, are you a memorizer, improviser, or blender?
Blender, definitely a blender. Memorize to the point where you know it's so cold that you can be completely authentic when you do it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's another tip, tool, or technique that you would recommend?
For me, this was about knowing my subject so deeply that I was able to explain it simply. So this is the fruit of 10 years of work in my life. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't want to push back, but I want to reinvestigate that because the curse of expertise is that we completely lose the perspective and the language, and we adopt all kinds of weird, hyper expert language that regular people, even educated, TED audiences that are outside of that field, they can't follow. So how did you, I'm really interested in how did you kind of language or deprogram yourself from the normal, industry speak that you would normally have?
Well, that's where my patients are my teachers because I'm a full-time pediatrician, right? And every day I need to help people understand in their anxiety when it's hard to listen, when you're anxious, how their kids are doing and why what is happening is happening. So I've learned over the years how to explain complex subjects in that way. So really, I guess the way to learn is talking to people outside of your field and seeing what works best for them to understand it. But also, I wanted to find something catchy because I knew that people remember better that way. And I knew that alliterations work great for us to remember and then be able to act upon.
Yeah, funny. Pedagogy as well as teaching, that's teaching children, but andragogy is teaching adults. And I think both of us, if you can just find a framework that just is the simpler, the better, the more repetition, the more same letter, that as long as it's clear, very, very, very helpful. Final question. What was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk?
Well, for me, it was that I happened to be working with a really brilliant woman getting my book pitch ready to go because I'm looking for an agent. And this was 4 days before I was scheduled to give my talk. And I was working full-time in my clinic prior to that. And we started talking about my talk. And she had a couple of great suggestions to tighten it up. I rewrote the thing after I got off the phone with her.
4 days to go.
4 days.
4 days. You're working 80, 90-hour weeks already.
Yeah. Not quite 90.
My gosh.
Yeah, and I had it stone cold memorized already. So I had to rememorize it. I went into the talk in a state of what I call controlled panic. But when I got out on stage and I felt the connection, because as Arthur would say, you have no more gracious audience than a TEDx audience. They just want you to win. And when we connected to each other and I felt them engaging with my ideas, it was just the most wonderful shared experience. Yeah. Really fun.
We've been enjoying this Blitz round with Dr. Alison Escalante. Her talk is called The Parenting ShouldStorm. And if you want to find out more information on that, if you want to watch it, go to our show notes page at BeTheTalk.com, or you can type it into YouTube and check it out. You also want to check out her Psychology Today articles, and you can go to her website at theprimarycarer.com. That's care with an R at the end, theprimarycarer.com. And we'll be back in just a moment with Dr. Alison Escalante's final word of advice. Hey, Talk Universe, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you want to give the talk to change the world, but you don't know how or even where to start, no problem at all. Go to BeTheTalk.com/get accepted for my new 5-day email course that'll show you how. Absolutely free. Just go to BeTheTalk.com/get accepted. And we're back with Alison Escalante's final word of advice for Talk Universe.
Don't let the shoulds crush you, whether it's in your parenting or your work life or in your coming TEDx talk. Whenever you feel a should, sigh, see, and start.
Alison Escalante, thank you so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you so much, Nathan. This has really been a blast.
Thanks for listening to Be the Talk. For tips and resources to help you change the world, go to BeTheTalk.com. See you tomorrow.